God is doing in this place. And certainly do not want to try and belabor the time, and I will tell you that there is no way I will be able to get through all that I want. I've got too many scriptures. There's too many things to bring out. I do want to talk to you a little bit. I want to preach today. If you've got your Bibles, turn with me to Daniel. The book of Daniel, beginning with chapter 1, verse 1. Daniel chapter 1, verse 1. While you're turning there, I want to say how wonderful it is not only to see each and every one of our church family members, but every guest and every visitor.
Yes.
It's so good to just even get caught up and see one another, see how each other's doing. I'll tell you, every now and then it's just nice. It's just nice. Dinner Friday night with a family that we know and is a good friend of ours, and we haven't been able to get together in a number of months, 6 or 8 months or whatever. It's been a while, just busy schedules. Life happens.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to get reconnected. Well, I tell you, church, it's wonderful to be able to come to the house of God and do the same thing. Hallelujah. Not just with one another, but also with Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Hallelujah. So good to see each and every one of you here. Daniel chapter 1, beginning with verse 1. The Bible says, in the 3rd year, the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with some of the vessels of the house of God. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. Notice the difference there in the uppercase and the lowercase, denoting we're talking about the one true living God, as the vessels were removed from the house of the God, to be brought to that lowercase g, the house of Nebuchadnezzar's God. Not the one true and living God, but his God. That'll play a part here in just a little while. He placed the vessels in the treasury of his God. Then the king commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of the nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace, and to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. The king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate and of the wine that he drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, and at the end of that time, they were to stand before the king. He wanted to know who it was he was dealing with. What were they capable of? What could they learn? Just how good could they be? And therefore, I'm sure in a strategical manner, he was thinking, how dangerous are they? I want to know. And this is a way that I can find out. But notice in verse 6, among these were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah of the tribe of Judah. Now, we may not necessarily recognize those names because we don't use them most of the time in our daily speech whenever we're talking about those more familiar. Maybe you've heard of these. Going in verse 7, the Bible says, the chief of the eunuchs gave them names. Daniel he called Belshazzar. Hananiah he called Shadrach. Mishael he called Meshach. And Azariah he called Abednego. For just a few moments, and we'll get into more of these scriptures if you want to hang on to the book of Daniel and just place a little bookmark there. And I want to preach on the subject, who will you be? Who will you be? Let's lay our Bibles aside. I want us to lift our hands collectively and just pray and ask God to continue to have His way in this place right now. God, we thank you, Father, for all that we have felt and all that you have done. Lord, you have already ministered in so many wonderful and awesome ways. And I know, too, that you are not through in this place, but you desire to bless and to touch and to minister in every heart and in every life. And I pray, too, God, that you would do just that. Let there be a freedom and a liberty in your house, God, as we come in and we give you thanksgiving and praise and glory for all that you have done and are about to do in faith, believing, God, that you're going to minister in every heart, in every life. We give you glory and we give you seated for just a few moments of time. Hallelujah. Everybody has a name.
Come on.
Some are lucky enough to have a rather simplistic name. Easily said, rolls off the tongue. Not that hard to say or spell. I used to kind of get a little fearful when I worked in the call center and people would call in and they would tell me their name because I knew this is either going to go really good or really bad. And I would start to try to spell some of the names and I would hear them, that's not how you spell it. And they would correct me and I would try it again, that's not how you spell it either. And after about the third time, well, why don't you tell me how it's spelled and we'll go from there, you know. It would make things easier. Because not all of us have, per se, the easiest name in the world. I have a decent name. I can't complain. Anthony's pretty straightforward. Most people can spell it. I have seen a few butcher that one too. I'm just being honest. But you know, for the most part, it's pretty simplistic, and most people can do all right with Anthony. So it's not that bad. Even the middle name being Andrew. Again, we're talking about, you know, people can say, they can spell, and it's not too bad. You know, we get to the last name, and it just gets nasty at that point. I've been called Cohron. I've been Cohron. Corn. And for those of you who don't know and thought I just said it right, no, there are 2 syllables. It's not corn. You're not a vegetable. Since then, I've been called popcorn, acorn, you name it. Oh, I mean, I got a million of them. You can try and come up with a new one, never do it. Nothing new under the sun. That's scriptural, by the way. I've heard them all. But I remember years ago, though, I thought, you know, I didn't like my name. And I heard there was another name that my parents had kind of batted around and thought about. And so they were going to, you know, even think about and possibly name me Damon. And then they said, well, we probably, you know, kind of chose not to because we were afraid people would call you Demon, not Damon. I let them know. I said, well, they call me Demon anyhow. My name's not even Damon, so you should have just gone with it. You know, just bit the bullet and made it happen. But I thought I wanted a different name. I thought I wanted something changed and different. I just, you know, as most teenagers and young adults especially, we're not really satisfied with anything. And so we want something new, we want something different. And I never liked my hair growing up. It was curly at that time and not as gray. It's no longer curly, and it is definitely no longer as dark as it used to be. It's only as dark now because I got so much goop in it, it can't harm. It can't help it, you know. Things have changed. Things are different. But I remember even as a teenager, I wanted a nickname. I wanted a nickname. And I remember, it's kind of interesting and ironic today that the Faircloths are here.
Yeah.
See, they've got a youngest son, Michael. They have a middle son, Tony. And they have the eldest son, Mark. Tony and Michael especially, because they were closer in age to myself, we hung out an awful lot growing up. I used to live at their house. They know things about me that the rest of y'all will never know. Never know. What happened in their home stayed in their home. We were kids. We were dumb. Just, you know, give us a leeway. You know what I'm saying? You know, we had fun though. We had a blast. But I would go over there and spend not just a night, but I would spend nights. I would spend like a week sometimes and just enjoyed and hung out and had a great time with their boys. But I remember at one point in time, and I don't even know if my mother remembers this, but Michael called me Tony once. And I don't think it was a mistake because he's got a brother named Tony, but he just thought, you know, the short, if you want to say Anthony, is Tony. And a lot of people do that. And I've even had many people ask me, well, do you go by Anthony or do you go by Tony? But my mother was the one that answered the question that particular day. She let Michael know if I wanted him called Tony, I would have named him Tony. Now you can imagine that as a teenager, you know, you're just kind of starting out, you're just getting going, you know. That puts the quietus and the brakes on everything name-wise. You're done. I mean, I couldn't have bought a nickname from that point on. No ace, no sport, you know, no anything. Nobody was going to call me anything but Anthony. Word got out, too. Don't do it, man. Don't do it. Sister C will go off on you. She will tear you up. Don't do it. Don't even call him anything but Anthony. That's it. and say it tone. Just don't scream it out. From that point on, I had to accept I was stuck with this. I was done. I had no choice. I'm going to be Anthony for the rest of my life. Now, in that respect, again, I've come to realize it's not that bad. Especially when I looked it up one day and I found out that it's actually, it means strong and manly. There's an awful lot of other definitions it could have been that weren't so good. I've looked up a lot of other names, and we did that as young adults, and well, younger adults. That was a great place for amen. As younger, we're still young, we're just younger at that time. When we were trying to pick out names for the kids, and especially, when you're new at this and you don't know what, so we looked up and we wanted to find a name that had some meaning. We wanted to have a name that had some design behind it. So with Ethan and with Madeline, we looked up their names and we found out, okay, there's nothing weird, there's nothing bad. They had good names, good meanings, good definitions. And so we liked it. We were happy with that, and so we went with it. It was a wonderful thing. If you look in the Bible doesn't spell it out in these particular scriptures, but there are other places and even throughout understanding of antiquity that when you look at the languages, everything has meanings, everything has definitions, just like the English language. Most of them, in fact, are much more limited, if you will, not quite as universal as the English language that I talked about before. Cool doesn't mean 5 different things in other languages, only in English. There are many other languages, in fact, that whenever a definition is given for something, it is absolute and it is forever. And as a parent, especially in days of biblical times when the writings were being penned and the inspired Word of God was being given, there were so many parents that as their children were born, they put a lot of thought, a lot of idea, they really put something into what their meaning was going to be, what the definition of their child's name was going to stand for and what it meant. And it always had design and purpose behind it. And that was a really, really amazing thing, especially when you look up many of the definitions of what their names were and what they meant. And it was really powerful, and it still is to this day. And I'd just like to share a little bit of that with you and why this is so important. Daniel, you see, had a great name, but he was renamed Belshazzar, and that means Lord of the Straitened Treasure. Lord of the Straitened Treasure. What I was talking about here is the fact that there were some change in his life. Now, it's not necessarily a bad definition. It's not really necessarily a negative definition, but it doesn't hold the power and the understanding that was given to him. But see, the world is all about changing us and making us more like them. Even if it's by degrees and by stages and measured amounts, they don't want us to be like God. They want us to be more like them. They don't want us to be more like the one who created us in His likeness and in His image, the way that He designed, but they want us to look and to sound and to be more like them, because that makes them feel better about the things that they do. I tell you, I have never in my life been engaged in any form of sin whatsoever, even as a young adult or a young child or a teenager or wherever I was in my life, that I didn't have somebody more than willing to draw me into the life and whatever it was they were doing. There was always invitations. There were always more than enough people willing to say, hey, would you want to come do this? There's a party, there's this, there's that, there's the other, and we can always get, if you will, a little bit of temptation. Somebody that's more than willing to help us to do wrong. And God and the church find that same desire and love and make sure that we are the ones extending the hand of invitation. Hey man, let me give you an alternative. Let me give you choice. I know that you might not think of it. I promise you, you'll have just as much fun and you'll remember it the next day.
Yes.
That's always a plus. You'll actually be able to tell everybody about it, because there won't be anything that you have to hide behind, or there won't be any shame attached to it. Not that this world has much shame, I understand. I'm telling you, living for God is a great thing. We need to begin to tell people about it. We need to begin to tell people about it. This world, we do. But this world wants us to be more like them. So immediately as these young men are brought in, and the eunuch was given the charge by the king that you're to bring some people from the nation of Israel, as we have now conquered them, they are now under our rule. Now, understand that He didn't have to do so, but the king in that day and time allowed Jehoiakim to remain king over Judah. He remained in power, but it was because the king allowed him to do so. And so he was still in power, he was still there, but he had no jurisdiction over the king. He was still subject to Nebuchadnezzar, and he still had to listen and do what he was told, and if you will, kind of assimilate and dissimilate those rules, those regulations, the edicts, whatever came across, and whatever was passed down. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel. And I say it that way only because, and we'll get there in a moment, there is something to be understood for what we know and what we should know.
Right.
There is a difference there, church. What we know and what we should know. Hallelujah. If I ask you right now who is who, I dare say that any one of us could really break down and say, oh, this one is that one, this one is that one, without going back to the Scriptures. Because we have for so many years, even in our own flesh, we have held to the names that were given to them by the eunuch appointed by the king. And Nebuchadnezzar said, I want them to have names. I want them to eat of our food, to do the things that we do, because I want to see quite simply not only how strong and powerful they are, but I want to see, can we make them into us? Can we convert? Can we change them? I know who they are. I've heard the stories. I know what others have said about the power of their God. But what I want to know is, can they, the Hebrews and the Jewish community, become like us? Can we make them Gentiles, as it were, like us? And so he put forth a plan, and he said, for 3 years, I want them to be tested, I want them to be taught, I want all of this to be just a practice, if you will, and then I want to know, can they stand before me? That doesn't mean, can they stand up on their legs? Can they just simply stand up? No, to go back to, again, the meaning and understanding of, do they have the ability intellectually, and not just physically, but emotionally, and in every way to be able to stand, as it were, on an intellectual equal with the king? Do they have the ability to have an educated conversation and one that is a little bit above the base and the gutter of what maybe most may have spoken about or talked about in that day and time? He wanted to know, can they be where we are, or at least what he felt like he was. So he brought them in, the eunuch renamed them. Belshazzar means Lord of the Straiten's treasure. Shadrach means royal, or the great scribe. Again, that didn't sound all that bad. That's not terrible at all. Meshach says guest of a king, or means guest of a king. Well, that's not all that bad either. Abednego means servant of Nebo. Nebo was one of their gods, and I will tell you now, this one was a pretty bad. This one was a pretty rough one, in fact. If you ever do any studying, any looking up on Nebo and the things that they required as humanity and flesh, the sacrifices and the offerings that were given, he was a horrible god in that day and time. And those of the pagan religions that served him would even sacrifice and give their own children to this god to try somehow and appease and to please him and make him happy. It was such a twisted religion. And now here we have Abednego, and he is the servant of Nebo, or at least that's what his name means. Now again, for most of us that wouldn't mean anything. It wouldn't even matter, you know. Not all of us are blessed enough to have a name like Anthony that fits me so well. Another great place for amen. Y'all missed it. No. That's like flowers the day after, Valentine's. It doesn't matter now. Y'all missed it. Y'all blew your chance out there. All that one, man. Y'all missed that one.
Come on.
That's all right. Some of us don't have that blessing like me. The fact of the matter is, a lot of that's because in today's terminology, in today's understanding, we don't really put an awful lot of emphasis into the meanings of the names that we put on our children. We don't really think about what does it mean, what is the definition. Why does that matter? Well, let's go back to the original definitions that were given to these young boys. The first one was Daniel. Daniel means God is my judge.
Oh!
Somebody must have put some balls and said, you know what? I want my son to understand that there is a God. Hallelujah. He's the one true living God. And he alone will judge us by his grace and by his mercy. I want my son to grow up and to have an understanding from the time that he was born, your name means God is my judge. Hallelujah. Hananiah, who was renamed Shadrach, Hananiah's name actually means God has favored me. How would you like to have a name like that? And not just because it's a name, but because you know your parents have prayed. There's a midnight oil laying on your face before God and saying, come on, God, I want you to get my boy favor. I want you to get my girl favor. I want you to anoint and bless them. Use them only you can. Use my children. Look through life every day and know, hallelujah, I am favored of the Most High God. I am favored of God Almighty. What a joy and what a privilege that is. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Mishael, who was renamed, I'm about to say Meshach. That's not right. Mishael means who is what God is.
Oh!
Now y'all don't take this the wrong way. I know my mom's here, so I'm sorry, Mom. I mean, I like Anthony. Man.
Hey!
I'd have been all right with Mishael, you know what I'm saying? Who is what God is. Man, I'm talking about to know that your parents thought about my son or my daughter, my child is going to be as God is. Hallelujah. Somewhere somebody had already reminded them that we were created in the likeness and the image of God Almighty. And this boy and this girl, my child, is going to be a child of God. It's going to be in the likeness and the image of the Most High Creator. Hallelujah. What a way to go through life. I guess it definitely has to be that whole deacon. It's got to be. I guess, I dodged a bullet there. And how about the last third of the trio, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Abednego's original name given to him by his parents was Azariah. Now I'll let you know just a little I shouldn't tell you this before we run with yourself. It was the reason why the eunuch named him servant of Nebo. Because his name, the Hebrew, means Jehovah has helped. Jehovah has helped. He's come to my need. He's come to my aid. He's come to my rescue. And if you know anything about having been rescued, you owe a debt to the rescuer. You owe your life to the one that saved yours. You owe Christ to the one who cares for you. And so instead, we'll try to rename him and make him a servant of our God. But his mom and dad have said, no, hallelujah. He's a servant of the Most High God. Because Jehovah alone has helped him. Jehovah alone has rescued him and brought him through. Hallelujah. Somebody needs to take home a new name today. You've been battered. You've been bruised. You've been beaten down by this world. And they try to tell you you're nothing. They try to tell you you're worthless. They try to tell you you don't amount to anything. They try to make you believe that you do not matter. God is saying, no, you understand. Those may be the names, the titles, the things forced upon you by this world. But God never created you out of nothingness to be worthless. God never spoke you into existence and breathed into you his breath of life for you to act of nothing. You do matter, hallelujah. You are priceless in the sight and in the eyes.
that you're lazy, that you will never come into what you ought to be. You'll never really flourish and become great at anything. You'll never be good. You'll never be worthy. And yet God is saying, no, in the flesh that might be the case. You don't just put on the flesh. You take on that mind name. We believe them when they say you've got no anointing. You believe them when they say your God is nothing. We start to doubt. We start to wonder. We start to say, well, maybe it's not everything that I thought it was. Maybe I'm not all that I was told by my parents or by the pastor, the people in church. Some of us need to understand the devil will whisper in your ear as long as you allow him to. Whisper in your ear as long as you allow him to. You must understand something about the mind. Mind is an amazing, the most amazing creation of God.
Yes, yes.
Seeing sunsets. Beauty could not be rivaled or compared by anything. But it still holds no candle even to the brilliance of the mind and what it is capable of.
Yes, yes.
There's no doubt. We have not even scratched the surface on what God has put there and placed there, thanks to the limitations of our own humanity. But God said, one day I'm going to take those limitations away, and you'll have a new mind, and you already got a new mind in Christ Jesus. And you'll get to see what you are capable of, who you really are in the eyes of this kind of God. We'll try to tell you that you are worthless. God said, no, you are priceless. In fact, you are worth so much. I will robe myself in flesh. Being both Son of God and Son of Man, I will come to this earth and I will die. I'm sorry. People don't die for others who are worthless. People don't die for somebody who doesn't amount to education. You gotta have something real about you for God Himself to come in time for you. Tell you what you got, I'll tell you exactly what you got.
Thank you, Lord.
His child.
Yes.
You are His child.
Yes.
You were created in His likeness. You were created in His image. Nothing else on this planet comes even close to where we are. Oh, but what about the primates? And there's only a couple of little small things genetically that are any different than where we are. And yes, those couple small things make all the difference in the world.
Yes. Right.
I'm not going to base religion on this, but the Bible says it's the little foxes that spoil the mind. It's the little things that make the biggest differences sometimes. And yet the fact of the matter is we need to understand too, in our lives, sometimes the little things that we think don't matter do matter. Sometimes little things that we think do matter don't matter.
Right.
We need to get into the Scripture and find the balance between the two and know what is and what is not, and where we really ought to be and where we got to be, church. Your name in this life may not really have much meaning. Maybe you know, like somebody at work recently who was about to have a baby. Maybe your parents didn't open up a book and try to find the definition. What they did was they went and they said, okay, what are the top 10 names of children this year? And they picked one of those 10 names and said, what does everybody else think about this? And I'm thinking, my opinion about the name of your baby shouldn't matter at all. None. Zero. Zip. Nada.
Right. Muy bueno.
Spanish versus how God sees us.
Amen. Oh, yes.
See, the problem with this story, it's got a bit of a dichotomy in comparison to you and I. It's a little bit of a juxtaposition. You see, in the story, you have God-fearing parents that gave a name to their children that was changed.
Yes.
In this day and age, we have parents who gave us a name that a one true and living God will give us a change. If we're able to accept it, if we're just open to Him. We don't have to be what even sometimes our parents have destined and designed for us to be. And I thank God for godly parents that loved me and that brought me to church, even kicking and screaming when I didn't want to be. Just, it was, you didn't, I did ask once, maybe, I don't think I asked twice, but I did ask them one time, do I have to go to church tonight? Never asked that one again.
Amen.
Why ask what you already know the answer to? I mean, you just try, That doesn't make any sense right there. So I knew better than to ask that one again. I knew how it worked out the first time. Had no desire to go back down. But now I live long enough to understand you. We recognize that it is good that we bring our children. We're honoring the scripture when it says, do not forsake the assembly of yourselves together.
That's right.
Because you never know when that might be the service that God gets a hold of them too.
Whoa!
Just like He did me. There were many services that God moved, and I didn't do anything. There was a service once. That's all it took. God to get a hold of me and bring me back to the place that I needed to be. Oh, church.
Thank you.
I'm telling you the difference it has made in my life. I thank God for the names that I was given by my parents and the fact that they are not that far off the spectrum. That most people can even spell them. But as good as that is, and as wonderful as that is, I thank God even more for the new name.
Amen.
The day that came to an old-fashioned altar, and I knelt down and said, my God! I'm a sinner. My God! I need salvation. I need a new person. I need to be recreated once again in your likeness and in your image. I lost some of what I'm supposed to be. I know who you designed and created me to be. And oh, thank God, He saw me in that moment. And He put a new name not only across my life, but He gave me the opportunity to then write my name in the Lamb's Book of Life. And it'll be there forever and forever and forever. God does that you affect other people. And everything we do will affect all of eternity. Would you stand with me this morning? Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Every choice, every decision, everything we do in life, it does affect us, church.
Yes.
It does make a difference, hallelujah. Even the little things. We think, oh, that's no big deal. Careful. Famous last words. Famous last words. In church, the little things matter. Just like the big things. Hallelujah. Sometimes we can even get caught up on the little things that don't matter. Hung up, and it doesn't matter. And God is saying, if you just put your foot off that little lip there, you'll be all right. You've got a piece of the floor, the job, can't be more than about 3/8 of the most half-inch variance in the height. I promise you, I mean, I fall in their face. Every day somebody's going to catch it. They're going to get the little stumble. Why? Because it's there. It's not that we don't know that it isn't there. It's not that we are surprised every time. Whoa! Where'd that come from? No, it's been there as long as I've been there now for more than 2 years. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. Nobody wants to pay the money to have the concrete lip ground down flat and flush. So they just say, watch your step, be careful. Invariably, somebody's going to forget at that moment, in a hurry, going to do this, in a hurry, going to go there, and make something happen. And so rushing, catch it, lift it out. We do. Sometimes it's the littlest of things that can throw off whatever it is that's going on in our life. Whatever direction we thought we were going, sometimes it's just the tiniest little thing that can trip us up and make a difference. I'll tell you today, the name may seem like a tiny little thing, but I promise you, it's attached to Jesus.
Whoa!
It's no small thing, sir. It's no small thing. It's no little thing. I don't know who this world has tried to tell you that you are. I don't know what name this world has tried to place upon you. I know that some have heard the words of others. They said, oh, your name must be loser. Maybe somebody's told you that your name should have been worthless. It's not just children who make such statements and comments.
Come on.
Not just children. I'll tell you, adults can be just as cruel and just as brutal. And I will tell you, even oftentimes by the way that they treat us, even if they never say a word out of their mouth, they're calling us every name but a Christian. And they do so. There's such an animosity in this world, day and age in which we live. Such a selfishness, all about me, nothing about you. There is just so big a chasm, such a large bridge that seemingly we got to overcome, and sometimes we just can't do it, and they're just nasty, they're just rude, they're just angry, they're just mad. I watched a wreck happen right before my eyes the other day. Somebody who was in the far right-hand lane and was going to be a merge lane, you had to get over. But you know how we are. We think we can get 3 cars in front of the group. We'll stay over as long as we can. This little old Toyota, a tiny little old box car, just staying over as long as they could, and then they whipped over in front of another car. I said, "Ooh, man, what a move. You almost caught that car. I mean, it was close." The car behind it was a big truck. He raged up past the white car, the little Toyota, thinking, oh, now that he did it, I'm sure he's going to let me in. Yeah. I could see the whole scenario in the mindset of both of them. Surely because he knows he needed a spot. He knows I need a spot, so he'll let me get in front of him, since he was able to get in front of somebody else. And I'm sure the other mindset was, I worked to get where I am. If you wanted this spot, you should have been in front of me. But you aren't. So whittle in the back, because I'm not letting you in front of me. The problem with it is, when you've got 2 vehicles, it's like any other matter. You may not understand this, but 2 things, 2 objects, 2 items cannot be in the same place at the same time. Can't occupy the same space. There's only so much to go around. Amen. The problem with this little space was it was occupied by a little car. And it was a big truck. And he finally just saw that the line was completely gone. He was already in the emergency lane on the side. And there was another lane coming up over the Cohron Bridge that was about to start merging again, so he had to get over or stop. But I think he just made up his mind he wasn't going to stop. He pushed and he forced. Before it was all said and done, he took the front end of that car and his whole rear bumper and hitch and every assembly piece that he had hanging on the back, just moved it over and turned it sideways, and even moved the car over almost into the other lane and the car beside it. They both ended up going off the side of the road, stopping, waiting for the police to arrive. I thought I'd love to have been a fly on that handrail. It wasn't a wall, it was on a bridge. I'd love to have been a fly and heard that conversation. The explanation of why I thought I deserved to come over, or why I thought I deserved not to show kindness and let him come over. That would have been a great conversation. I'll tell you, this world will make its own assumptions, not only about itself, but about you, about everybody and everything. They'll look at you and say, you don't deserve what I've got. And so I'm not going to share it with you. You haven't walked in my shoes, so you don't know everything that I know. So why would I help you? You don't know the price that I paid for what I've got. So why should I give you any assistance or any help whatsoever? And they will take who you are, they will take who God meant you to be, and they will twist it and pervert it into something that God never intended. Make no mistake, if they are already twisted and perverted and something that God never intended them to be, misery loves company, and they're going to want you to be the same. They will try to bring you down to their level instead of trying to reach up to yours. Hallelujah. That's why God gave you and I the commission to go into the highways and the hedges and compel them to come in. Let them know that there's a better way. Let them know that they don't have to be what this world has said that they are, but they can be better. They can be made better. The power and the blood of Jesus Christ. And we have been made better, so can they.
Yes, right. Thank you, Jesus.
I wonder today what names the world put upon you. Loser, worthless, sorry, nothing, meaningless, useless, lazy. Names that they try to place upon you. I wonder today if somebody would be willing to say, I wonder what God has to call me.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder what God created for me to be, who God created me to be. I wonder what God has planned for my life. Hallelujah. If you're any bit curious today, I challenge you, I invite you to come out, to step forward and just let God show you that you were made for something special. You were created for greatness. You were made to be something more than what this world thinks of you or believes of you. You were created to be a child of the Most